Hi everyone, welcome to January STEM program. From now on, these programs won't be live anymore because we haven't been getting many questions during the program, and this way I can make sure the experiment goes right, because if it doesn't go right, I can always start over again. But I will be on Facebook monitoring your comments, so if you want to ask me any questions, I can answer you right away while you're watching the video. So don't forget, you can do that. If you're on YouTube, you can always send me an email or give us a call to ask me a question. Okay, so today it is winter, it is cold. We are going to be doing some cold experiments. Some experiments with ice, an experiment about Arctic animals that live in very cold regions. So why don't we get started? Okay, so here we have 6 blocks of ice. We are going to do an experiment to see what melts ice, and even more so, which item melts ice the best. So there are things that help ice melt. You may have seen this on the roads in the winter. They put salt down, and that helps the ice melt. But what about these other things? We have hot water, cold water, cayenne pepper, salt, and sugar, and we're going to leave one without anything on it as our control. So I want you to stop and think about what you think is going to melt the ice best. I'm going to put these things on the ice, and then we're going to wait a little bit to see how it goes. So I am going to start here with the cold water, just a little bit. Right next to it, the hot water. I'm going to do the sugar here. I'm going to do the cayenne pepper. Now, cayenne pepper is kind of spicy. It depends on what your tolerance for spicy is, but some people find it very spicy, some people find it not so spicy. But does that spice mean heat? And down here I'm going to do the salt. This is just regular table salt. When they put salt down, they use a different kind of salt. But this is the salt you would put on your food at dinner. So I'm going to put quite a bit on there. And I'm leaving this one alone. So we're going to wait maybe about 15 minutes and come back to it and see what has melted the ice the best. I want you to think about whether something will stop the ice from melting, or whether all of it is going to help the ice melt, or whether it's going to do nothing. So it could either do nothing, help the ice melt, or stop the ice from melting. So I'll leave you to think about that. All right, so while we wait for our ice experiment to melt, I'm going to talk about something different, but still has to do with ice. There are 2 very, very cold regions on Earth, one at the top, one at the bottom. There are other cold regions, but these are the coldest here. But it's not like nothing lives there. Lots of animals live up in the coldest regions. Can you think of any Arctic animals or Antarctic animals? If you can't, I'm going to give you a few examples. So some you might know are whales that live part of the year in those cold places, seals, polar bears, penguins. So these ones that I went over, whales, seals, polar bears, penguins, they are 4 animals that are warm-blooded. Now we are warm-blooded. Humans are warm-blooded. But we wouldn't be able to live up there without tons of protective clothing to keep us warm and shelter to keep us warm. So how do these animals do it? Well, there are a couple of reasons. Sometimes fur and feathers help in the case of polar bears and penguins. But these are animals that get their food from the cold, cold water. So how do they protect themselves? And especially the ones that live in the water all the time, like whales. How do they not get too cold in those very cold regions? Well, I'm going to show you right now one of the ways. In this bowl, I have some very cold water. It's not frozen, but it is cold. So I'm going to put my bare hand in. It's not unbearable, but I don't want to be in there for very long. But on this hand, you'll see I'm wearing a glove. The glove is the skin of the animals, and underneath the animal's skin, they have a layer of fat called blubber. And we don't really have a large layer of fat like those animals do. But what if I put something on my hand that was like blubber? This is shortening. It is a kind of fat that I'm going to be using as our blubber. So I'm going to put it all over these two fingers and then put the fingers in the bowl. And I barely feel the cold water anymore. And that is because the shortening is protecting my skin. It's keeping the cold from getting in. All right? And that's the same way that those Arctic animals keep warm and keep from getting too cold. Okay, now it's been about 15 minutes, so why don't we go back to our ice experiment? So now that you've seen our ice, I'm going to be ranking them from best to worst. Just a reminder, this one is cold water, hot water, sugar, cayenne pepper, salt, and our control, which had nothing added to it. The one that worked the best, what do you think? It was the hot water, which isn't very much of a surprise because heat is one of the major things that melts ice. The one surprising thing is the next runner-up is the cold water. Not the salt, not anything else. The cold water melted the ice second best after hot water. Next up in bronze medal position is the salt. But what's surprising is the salt only melted slightly more than the sugar and the cayenne pepper. I was not expecting the sugar to do as much as it did. You can see it kind of eating away at the ice. And that I wasn't expecting. And that is the fun of doing science experiments. Sometimes things happen that you weren't expecting, and that's the fun of it. The sugar and the cayenne pepper kind of are tied. And the control is last. The control had nothing on it. So, since all of these have more water in it than the control, what does that mean? That means all four of them helped to melt the ice. So none of the things we added to the ice stopped it from melting, because if it did, it would have less water than the one we did nothing to. That's one of the reasons why in experiments you have a control, so you can better gauge what the experiment did. So now, since all of them have more water than control, we know that none of them stopped the ice from melting. They all helped the ice to melt. So, did your predictions come true? Did they not? Well, I hope you had fun in this STEM program. Next month, we are going to be doing candy science. So keep an eye out for that, and I hope you have a wonderful January.